Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S-4 with Eric Cooper.
Prepare to go to the edge.
3 years. Over 1,000 followers. 30,000 downloads in the archives.
Welcome to S-4. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S-4, the official radio broadcast of Forest Moon Paranormal, with host Eric Cooper and our panel of enlightened minds. Coming to you live from FMP headquarters located in the heart of Skagit Valley, Washington, at the base of the majestic North Cascade Mountains. We will take you through a journey of exploration as we examine every aspect of the metaphysical. From spirits, UFOs, Bigfoot, and conspiracies, to grounding, protection, astral travel, and everything in between, leaving you with a better understanding and comprehension of the world around you, and the entities that inhabit it.
Join us every Saturday night at Spreaker.com and locally on KSVU 90.1. Don't forget to check out our new webpage at www.s-4radio.com.
Now sit back, open your mind, get ready, because this is S-4.
Good evening or morning, depending where you are, and welcome to the S4, the voice of Forest Moon Paranormal, coming to you live from the FMP headquarters in the heart of the Cascade Mountains in Concrete, Washington. FMP is a highly active emergency response team for all aspects of the paranormal, from aggressive hauntings to alien interaction, Bigfoot and other cryptids, and everything in between is terrifying. S4 is the voice where we discuss these things in detail. Not only can you find S4 right here on Spreaker, but for our local listeners, also on KSVU 90.1 FM from 10 to 12 Saturdays with pre-recorded shows. So it's hard to believe, folks, tonight it's the 6th of July and it's S4's 3rd anniversary. Technically, 10 July, S4 started as the Area 51 Cafe along with myself, SJ and Russ Wells, and has grown from there. Tonight, we'll be joined by Dave Scott of Spaced Out Radio, as he was instrumental in the S4's growth. And we have with us Seth Kinsey from Dark 30 Radio, and also one of our former co-hosts. And tonight with us, we have Cole Wegleitner, our FMP technical analyst and owner of Statement of Sound DJ Services, Chris and Brent Dodge from the FMP Extended Care and Astral team, Thomas McAllier from our Boots on Ground team, Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, Jamie Justice, a longtime generational resident from up here at Upriver and the neighbor of FMP headquarters, and a frequent guest on S4. So how's everyone doing tonight?
Doing good.
All right.
That's yourself.
So, I gotta say, when we started S4, I never thought it was going to go 3 years. It was just kind of a fun show to do. That's really how we looked at it. And, you know, I posted on my personal page as well as an FMP, the very, very first Area 51 Cafe video with myself, SJ and Russ Wells, and we're right up here on Little Haystack Mountain, right behind the house, talking Bigfoot, talking UFOs, talking paranormal in general, the problems of the paranormal, and they haven't changed in 3 years. Dave.
Hello, Mr. Cooper.
What made you start Spaced Out Radio?
You know what? When I started Spaced Out Radio, it was November 30th, 2014, and having a previous radio background in Vancouver and on Vancouver Island, being behind the microphone was very natural for me. And with my own personal experiences that I had, I wasn't finding the answers to the questions that I had about the strange phenomena that was occurring around me. So Johnny Enoch, a very well-known researcher, especially into ancient Greece and Egypt, he had a UFO conference up in Vancouver, and he had asked me to MC it. And after that, he's the one who actually convinced me to start SOR. And geez, we're 4.5 years in, and you know, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, some days I regret it, some days I absolutely love it, but it's one of those situations where I've met a lot of good people, such as yourself, and tugged a few beards, such as yourself, and I think the camaraderie that I've been able to build, and there's been some ups and there's been some downs, that I have to see it through the finish now. And that finish line is trying to get the message out on a professional journalistic level.
And I'm going to say that I'm by no means a professional journalist or radio broadcaster by any means. You know, my very first experience on radio was actually back in the 80s, and that was in college radio. I actually did 3 different music shows. It wasn't talk radio. I mean, I could have sat and talked, because if you know college radio, your show is up to you. You can sit and talk for as many hours as you want, or you can sit there and play music, without saying a word other than doing promos. And I've got well over 200-300 hours, of airtime from radio station, but that was back in the 80s. And they jump into the paranormal. I've been in the paranormal field for almost 30 years now, close to it. And the thought of doing paranormal radio had crossed my mind over the years, but I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the... I didn't know about Spreaker. I didn't know about Blog Talk. I didn't know about all those. Now you see every Tom, Dick, and Harry's got a blog, or not a blog, podcast. Which, by definition, S-4, when you're listening to the pre-record or the after shows, could be seen as a podcast. We're live radio when we go live. And because we're terrestrial on pre-recorded shows, we can say we are a terrestrial show on that aspect of it. But I just don't have the time for a continual live radio. I mean, it's enough doing it on Saturday nights from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And, Cole and I were talking just, a week or two ago that, yeah, there are times when it comes Saturday and we're going, oh, God, I'm tired. Do I really want to do the show? Yeah, I have to. I've got no choice. But once you get the show going, you have that second win and you're gone. But I've always said, too, when the joy and the fun of doing this show is gone and it becomes a job that you're not getting paid for, then it's time to hang it up. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I like to follow that rule with everything I do.
Right. When it just becomes a drag. Because honestly, will you ever run out of topics? I don't think so. And that's why, every December is when we sit down and come up with topics for the entire year. Now, do we always stick by that schedule? For the most part, we do. But something comes up and we decide to throw a different topic into a certain time slot because, hey, it's Memorial Day, for example. And we need to bring up veterans because it's Memorial Day and civilians are confused by what the definition of Memorial Day is. So we threw a veteran show in. We took the normal topic out. So every once in a while, that happens. But for the most part, we have a calendar. And we go by that calendar pretty much. So, Seth.
What's up?
When you started Dark 30, why did you stop Dark 30?
Why did I start it?
Yeah.
I started because I was inspired by the people I had heard at the time. I didn't know Dave yet, but that came a little later on. I felt that there were, and this is in terrestrial radio, I've always felt that in most cases, whenever someone was on a certain station or whatever, that it was very limited in what they could talk about. You'd have a sponsor on the side. You always had to worry about a sponsor being angry or a sponsor pulling out. I mean, not like they didn't know full well what they were getting into with the topic. And so I wanted to be on the other side of the microphone asking the questions that I felt never seemed to get answered. I saw that there were a lot of people doing that in their own way. And with respect to them, I had my own style and way I wanted to go about things. And in my own life and personal experiences that I had, as I told a few other people, it was a year ago this week, actually, that I had my first experience where I had actually finally seen the Greys in my living room, whereas my wife had had experiences her whole life, ever since she was a kid, and I had always suspected there were things around, but it was pretty much confirmed after you guys in Forest Moon Paranormal deactivated the implants. And my son was at camp with his grandma, and it seemed like they were looking for him, couldn't locate him. They were very confused, and it was really hot. My wife has restless leg syndrome, so I decided to come and sleep out on the couch. And when I woke up, I sat straight up. And, there was 5 of them in the living room, and one of them was just watching me and, telling me telepathically, I could hear it in my head, don't move. It's fine, just don't move. And it looked like they were kind of neatly ransacking the place. And that was the last I'd seen anything. But mainly I wanted to see people get help. And if I couldn't help them myself, I wanted to kind of put a stop to the people who really would try to, for one, chastise somebody. You have friends and family, and it's really hard, and sometimes it's even ruined relationships. With one former person who was a guest on my program who told me, he said, I told my wife about the things that were happening. And, now there's relationship problems and all sorts of stuff. And it's really sad that you're castigated and painted with a broad brush. And I wanted to put a stop to that. But it was very, very hard to do without, losing, so to speak, your public reputation or having someone come down on you. But then I see, there's places like, Spaced Out Radio. There's places like S-4. Another great program I listen to is Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis. And you go to those places, and suddenly, you feel you're not a weirdo anymore. You feel like you belong because there's someone else who says, okay, not only did I have those experiences, I believe you, but not because I have those experiences. but because I also have an open mind and I'm willing to listen. And I feel that someone actually talking about it, raising the issue, discussing things that need to be discussed is a catharsis for people who, in all seriousness, like, you said, okay, with the Veterans and Memorial Day coming up, you say, we got to bring up the veterans. Well, there's probably some of the veterans out there, too, who've had the paranormal experiences. They've had a hard time talking about war and the things they've seen, and then let alone maybe there's something else on top of that. And we have people who are having these experiences, paranormal, supernatural, beyond strange, high strangeness, and people who don't have someone to talk to, who don't have anybody to listen to them. Those are the people who are at risk for things like self-harm and suicide, because that's the last road they take. And I feel that if someone can hear someone like me or like any of you guys, and, it's nice to get that relief, I'm not alone. And if I can help give that to someone in some way I can, that's what I like to do. So there's my answer.
Outstanding. That is outstanding. That's really why we felt the need to do S4, honestly, was you have too many, I guess you would call them Google researchers,
Yes.
Too many in this field that they don't go out in the field. They don't actually handle cases. They're just sitting behind the keyboard and researching on Google. They have no clue. They have no clue about the paranormal other than what they see on TV. And then they go on their little podcast and they talk about it.
And, it really bugs me when you say, like, when bringing that up, it's like, okay, these TV shows, someone was on a group, I think the group on Facebook is This Old Haunted House. There's this old house and then this old haunted house. And someone said, this house, da-da-da-da-da, ghost adventures. I said, I'm sorry, I can't pay any legitimacy to that because they're all about instant gratification, da-da-da-da-da. And someone says, well, my sister was on the crew and they didn't do this and that. And, I didn't reply, what horsepuck I thought it was, because it wasn't for me to denounce her situation. However, I know that when you're talking to an entity, they're not always going to make that flashlight blink in seconds. You may set up for the biggest paranormal investigation of your life, set up every piece of equipment, make sure everything's charged and ready to go, and you may be camped out there 2 or 3 days and leave with absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing with paranormal TV. We're not going to go on this rant too long, but my point is they usually take 3 days of filming to make a 45-minute TV show. 3 days. And, you've got the director pushing the door and kicking the rock and yada, yada, yada. And you got too many people that think that's real. And that's one of the dilemmas of a lot of the podcasts. It's a lot of the dilemmas of a lot of the teams. They think it's real. And they take that, it's real, and they educate themselves with that. And we clean up the mess. I want to jump to Jamie, because Jamie's a fairly new listener to S4. When did you start listening? Just a few months ago, wasn't it, Jamie?
Yeah, it was, and I think we talked about the light over the hills when I got started.
Yeah, the light over Haystack.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember, because I think it was right after Paracon that you started listening, I believe. I can't remember.
It was right about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So, because the light usually pops up.
You're close to a year now.
Yeah, because the light usually shows up above the hillside late July and August, so it was right before Paracon.
So what's your favorite thing about having your very own Upriver Paranormal Radio Show?
Well, my favorite part is the Bigfoot. That's my favorite because everybody has stories of the wood.
Oh yeah, we have.
But I also have, huh?
Go ahead.
But we have Bigfoot right in our backyard, Eric.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Right here in the mountain behind both of our houses.
Yeah.
And I know you got your nephew involved. I know your nephew was in the chat room for a while.
Yeah, he got a hold of me here. It was right before I told him to go on the show. I go on there and talk to Eric, and then he called me up and he goes, Auntie, have you ever heard Bigfoot knocking? It was so funny because he was so serious, and it was like when I answered him straight up, I go, oh yeah, he's right there behind the house, and everything. He's going, really? He goes, wow. He goes, because most people won't admit to that.
No, until they've heard it. And Thomas was actually with me the first time we heard Bigfoot knock, and that was what about 20.
That was 2016.
Yeah, it was right before S4. No, so we were doing S4 actually. It had because it was hunting season, so it was like October that we heard Bigfoot knock.
Yeah, because we went up hunting.
Yep. And so growing up, my uncle always had stories because he goes hunting every year. He does 2 different hunting camps, as a matter of fact. And he'd talked before about it wasn't so much knocks, but he actually heard howls that weren't coyote, they weren't wolf, they were a very primate sounding howl. So he'd heard Bigfoot noise, but not the knocks. So even I guess probably 17, 18, I heard Bigfoot stories, but it wasn't really impressive to me. It was like, okay, cool, there is Bigfoot. But I wasn't into the paranormal until 1990, literally. 1990 was when my eyes got opened up. And so in 2016, we heard the knocks. I knew exactly what they were. And you've got the skeptics. It's got to be woodpeckers. Really? I think I know the difference between what a woodpecker sounds like and what a Bigfoot tree knock sounds like. Big difference. Have you ever had that, Dave?
I've never heard the knocking.
Oh! I thought you'd heard knocks.
No,
Okay.
I'm still a virgin to the wood knocking. That's for sure. I'm hoping. We spend enough time in the forest, and but I haven't heard them yet. I wish I had.
I thought you had. Cause I know you've got a lot of Bigfoot activity out in your neck of the woods in Canada as well. But when you hear it, you're going to know it. That's my point. Because you definitely, I've heard woodpeckers since I was a kid. I've lived in the mountains my entire life, other than from about the age of 18 to, from about 17 to 20 when I joined the Army. I lived in South Mount Vernon for 3 years. Just 3. The rest of my entire life has been in the mountains, other than my Army career. So, I've heard woodpeckers many times. I know Thomas has too.
Oh, yeah.
So, what was your first thought when we heard those knocks?
My first thought was that human or was that something else? Then when it happened again, I was like, there's no way that's human.
Well, there was no other humans that far up Haystack. Because, again, there's a gate. We know when someone goes in, we know when someone goes out. The only time there's anyone up there is when there's loggers. And there wasn't any logging going on at the time, so I knew it wasn't human. But no, I get that. And what ticked me off the most, we dropped our packs. We went over to where the the knocks were, and found nothing. And we looked for 10 minutes. Went back to our packs, picked him up, took one step to leave, and he did it again. Like, really? Now you're just taunting me. That's all you're doing. So it shows Bigfoot's got a sense of humor.
Yeah, Eric. One of the biggest things back here on Haystack that I noticed before I ever heard any of the noises was the lack of noise. If you go all the way up on Haystack and then you go down into Finney Creek, there's spots where the forest is really thick and stuff, and there's no sound at all. It's like the air doesn't even move or anything, and the only thing, I mean, it's just the hair on the back of your neck goes up, but it's void of all sound entirely, and you can feel something watching you, and it's crazier, I think, than hearing the howls.
Yeah, there's a lot going on up there. Not just Bigfoot, which we won't get into on the show until I actually get the team up there so we can get some gear and do some testing. But I've got my theories, and I won't get into my theories until I can get more fact based on those theories. But there's a lot of alien activity in the Cascades to begin with, and that's kind of where I'm leaning with that.
So, Eric.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What was your guys' main? What was your main concentration when you started S4? So in 2016, what did you guys mostly concentrate on? Which side of the paranormal?
That's a good question. It got me thinking. So actually we did, and that gets me back to the timeline. So SJ and Russ wanted to do an overall paranormal show. And it included Bigfoot. It included UFOs, abduction. Because Russ had his own UFO experience. So, and yeah, Izzy's in the chat. And it was aliens. It was mostly UFO, and it was going to be mostly UFO and alien. And that brings to today, you will find most of our high-rating shows are UFO and alien related. That's, I think, most people's interest. Would you agree with that, Dave? What's your highest rating show?
Definitely right now it would be UFOs. Our Keith Andrews is one of my highest rated shows. Ghosts, I'll tell you right now, have really dropped off the radar for a lot of people when it comes to ratings, except when it is personal experiences.
Right.
So if I have someone on who's talking about a bunch of haunted locations, it really is an average show. But if I have somebody who's telling their own experience, that's where the ratings come up. But my audience, I mean, you get trained per show. You know, my audience is going to know we don't do a lot of paranormal group shows because, to me, radio is about telling a story, not about saying, what kind of gear do you use? Well,
right.
You use a K2? Well, why do you waste your money and time using that? You know, to me, that's not radio. That's just playing on a microphone. And, you know, and I apologize, I may sound really egotistical to a lot of people, but my job is to try and tell stories and bring information. So right now, with the way the UFO subject has been going with the To the Stars Academy and with the move towards disclosure or confirmation, whichever way you want to call it, that's where I'm noticing a lot of people starting to tune in, because when they tune into a lot of different programming out there, and as Seth said earlier, there are very few programs that are out there that are asking the proper questions. And I think that's why people are starting to take note of us and programs like ours, that when there are people who are seeking the answers to what the news of the day is or the hot story of the day is, they're coming towards us. But yes, UFOs and cryptids are our biggest stories that we have going. I could do a psychic tarot card reading show, and my numbers are going to be low. But the minute I get into UFOs, numbers get up. And then comes the conundrum where you get sick and tired of talking about UFOs. You want some variety, but the numbers dictate which direction you got to go. Mm-hmm. So it's a fine balance trying to do that when you're doing, on average, 22 to 24 shows a month.
Right. And you have the issue too, because you're a 5-day a week. Well, you're a 7-day a week show. You do Monday through Friday.
Yes.
And so you have a lot more topics. I mean, when we're only doing 4 shows a month, every Saturday, we don't have to. I mean, like I said though, there's a plethora of topics we can pull from, but I gear most of our topics towards what FMP does, the issues we deal with, which, there you go, ghosts, spirits, how to remove them, paranormal protection, UFOs, abduction, Bigfoot, other cryptids. I mean, we can go on and on and on. We have a ton of topics that we could, dig from. And that's why we kind of changed the tag to the Voice of Forest Moon Paranormal, because that's really what it is. And so with the timeline, we actually started doing a team show, and that wasn't bringing in, that was just kind of repetitive, because it's always a team show. Most of the team, and we changed it up, but most of the team is actually on the panel. So why do a team show when it's always a team show? The only difference is when we do roundtable. But
I think it all depends on what your focus is too, because you're more focused on promoting what is happening with FMP and what is happening with your own team and the stories that you guys and cases you guys are dealing with. Every now and again, you'll slip into something different, but the focus for something that I do, or something that other good broadcasters or broadcasters in general are doing, it's all about focus. And I remember, Eric, when you and I were talking about this 3 years ago, when you were talking about setting up S-4, one of the things that we talked about was the word focus. Focus on your topics, focus on your activities, try and tell a story. And I think, for what you're doing in your community, I think you're telling one hell of a story.
Well, thank you. And I would hope. And how I can improve, we'll talk about that the last hour. What the mission and some of the changes and improvements hopefully we can bring to S4. I got to stop real quick. My kids are listening, so I got to give a shout out to Cheyenne and Anthony, because they're actually listening to Daddy's show tonight.
Hi guys.
Hey, Mom, Ken, and Bubba.
And Izzy.
Kimberly says hi.
Izzy's sitting there listening too, but she's also in the chat room. So there you go.
Hey.
And so what happened with Area 51 Cafe is we had planned on this big, really cool live video show. And you can actually go in the S4 YouTube channel, and the very first episode is there, and I believe the second, and maybe even the third, because we actually got together for like 2 other videos. But it's a funny story, because they were living in Bellingham. We actually had to get together to do these live videos that we were going to do for Area 51 Cafe. And both of our vehicles broke. I count that as fate. That was the birth of S4. Because we talked, and they wanted to do their own show, and they said, why don't you do your own show? And I said, that's cool. So in keeping with the UFO theme and the Area 51 theme, what better way to name a show than S4? The bunker in Area 51. So S4 was born. So I did Blog Talk that was my first platform for probably 3 shows. And then you and I talked, Dave, and you were on Spreaker, and you said Spreaker was a better buy. Spreaker had a live chat room, had better features, and we switched over to Spreaker. Now, my first guest on S4 was Eric Markham, our scientist. And our very first show, yes, I remember that, and that was back in 2016, was the worst topic that we both despise, RH negative. Oh my God, I still cringe when I see RH negative brought up. Oh, I'm RH negative, that makes me an alien. No, it doesn't. RH negative is simply the lack of a protein in your blood. It's not a blood type. And I know, Seth, I know. RH negative is a personal thing for you.
Oh, definitely.
But no, you see, you know, there's abductees that aren't RH negative. There's psychics that are not RH negative. So RH negative, although there might be a common theme there, you got all these people that jump up and down and say, I'm RH negative, that makes me special. No. You know, because they actually take it a step further and say, I'm psychic because I'm RH negative. Well, I know really good psychics that are not RH negative. So that's not the common factor there. But that was both of them, you know, and back then, S4 was a 2-hour show. We didn't actually go to a 3-hour show until this year, actually. Because we had listeners that wanted us to go to 3 hours, and we did. And that's the thing, we listen to our listeners. I think that's one thing I can take pride in, is that if listeners want something changed, we will contemplate it, and we will do our darndest to make that change. And we did, with the 3-hour show. So Thomas.
Yes.
When did you start listening to S4? You didn't start listening until recently, because I know you were moving and going through a lot of life changes.
The original time I started listening was with your show with Eric Markham.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I ended up stopping for a year and picked it back up right after that Paracon. Then had a whole bunch of life changes and just recently picked it back up.
Oh, you just recently moved back, so that's a big difference too. And back then we changed the name to S4 with E squared because Eric Cooper, Eric Markham, and I think you kind of named that, didn't you, Dave?
I recommended it.
You recommended it, and we took it. So yeah, we were S4 with E squared for, I think, probably about 6 months. I don't even think we made it a year, because then due to work problems, he had to step out. And let's see, I can't remember what happened. I think after Markham left is when you stepped in, wasn't it, Seth?
Yes. During the summer. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you were with us for a few months, actually. I think when you left was when Corey stepped in.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably about March of 2018.
Yeah, I was going through some health issues and things like that, and adapting to going blind, walking with a cane, things of that nature. Still retaining some vision, but everything happens for a reason, so I don't complain. And really, I don't like it when people extend sympathies, because I'm not walking around with cancer or anything that's going to kill me. But then, you know, it led me to fight a new fight that I'm going to talk about during the end of the program when we get to say our goodbyes. But yeah, we discussed some really interesting topics. We discussed religion and aliens. We talked about the Dugway Proving Grounds. we discussed what was going on in Area 51 in detail. And one of the programs we had when you were having the really bad storms, and we ended up pre-recording it and then uploading it. And I have S-4 in a loop on my FM transmitter here locally, so I really can't tell the feedback that I do get. So,
Right.
But I do have it playing whenever I have my FM transmitter going, part 15 FCC, and pretty soon an AM transmitter of sorts. But it's really around here, the question I want to ask you guys in terms of my involvement in all of this locally here. There are two dilemmas, and maybe you two can figure out, or probably already know, all of you actually, what you think I should do in this area, because for one, I'm not hearing about a lot of activity. The last thing I heard about was there was a Bigfoot sighting not far from here at Green Lake. It's a popular tourist/camping, vacation, swimming hole. And it's so deep that there's actually 2 layers in the lake, and some people have reported that there had been UFOs coming out of the lake at night. And with that being said, someone had sighted a Bigfoot there. And other than that, really, I've seen a lot of teams around here who are doing the things that we shake a pointing stick at in anger when we say, it's more than just putting on a black jacket, painting your nails, and saying you're a Ghostbuster.
Yeah.
And that seems to be, without insulting anybody in the future that I may be working with, that seems to be the case around here. And it's so frustrating that here locally, there are no, what I feel, and this may irritate a lot of people, but until they can prove otherwise, there are no legit paranormal teams around here that are not consumed with ego. And therefore, I feel that people here locally are not getting the help that they need. They are not comfortable in talking about it. And it's a real paranormal crisis here in central New York. So I want to know what you guys recommend and what you recommend the citizens here ought to do to change that.
Dave, you want to say anything?
Oh, goodness. I think it's just, Seth, I'll be honest, I have actually moved away from trying to be a part of anything paranormal in any type of group because of the politics involved, because of the different attitudes. I mean, one of the things that, really, really was a learning lesson for me was last year when, and Eric, you helped me out with this, your team, we're at my local museum where I do a ghost tour. I had a psychic who does everything from the dark side coming through and telling and spreading around the community that our tour that raises money for the museum is infested with demons and dark entities. Right? And literally, this caused our numbers to go down, and it's very tough to go through that. I actually got called into a board meeting and being asked what the heck is going on. And we later found out that the lady who was pushing these rumors, who ended up taking one of my best tour guides along with her, and Eric, you've met Carrie.
Yeah.
Well, Carrie now says everything's a demon. And I've had to eliminate Carrie from my tour as well, which kills me because she's fantastic. So pretty much since then, because of the BS that was surrounding all of this, I had to make a personal decision. I'm not doing this for paranormal teams. I'm not investing Sasquatch for Bigfoot teams and BFRO people to come in here and play their fake science, or UFO people to come in, because the one thing that I'm seeing is once somebody gets 4, 5, 6 weeks into this field, all of a sudden they're an expert. They know everything. You can't tell them anything at all because they've read books, they've watched YouTube videos, and it's ridiculous. So I've actually gone the polar opposite way of you, Bud, where you're trying to figure out what to do, and I'm just trying to figure out how the hell to stay away and keep a positive message going.
I'm going to give you a couple ideas, Seth. So go on, and I don't have the link in front of me, so Google Paranormal Society and go in New York State. You're going to get a ton of quote-unquote paranormal groups, teams. Then call them and ask them the questions you know to ask. And you're going to get probably about 3/4 of them will either have dead phone numbers, dead websites, because they don't keep that website updated. I've actually done this. I've actually gone through all 38,000 paranormal groups listed on that website, state by state by state. And you'll find that a majority of them, I think fringe teams last maybe a year, maybe 2, if they stretch it. And I've said this on the show before, any team that is under 5 years is a newbie to me.
Exactly.
Because how many cases have these teams actually gone in the field, and granted they've messed them up probably, but how many of these teams have actually gone out in the field and actually done anything? How many cases in 5 years?
And it's more than just like they could even go out and do things, but then they're collecting their data and maybe not doing anything with it. Maybe they run into a spirit, whatever. Maybe they have an encounter with an entity. Maybe they get video. Maybe they get an EVP, but then they just sit on it. I don't see anybody around here trying to help any lost souls cross over. I don't see anybody around here dealing with cases like Forest Moon Paranormal does. And so, like, I myself am not trying to get a gang of people together because I know how that goes locally. I had seen it. It affected a personal friend of mine around here where this person actually went to the investigations with him. And their technique, and I'm not going to mention the team because I don't, backbite on the air.
Right.
But their technique I agreed with. What they did I agreed with. But it was how they treated one another personally that left me disgusted, as this one person on their team, was a legit psychic. And I don't say that about a lot of psychics I run into. This person was a legit psychic, didn't know a single thing about me. My real name was not published online at all that time anywhere, and read my family like a book before I even had profile pictures or anything up. There was no way this person could have gathered that information. And this person had done a lot of legwork for that group. And when this group decided they were going to start writing books and the bankroll came in, there was a meet and greet with the team at a public event. The psychic got a little more attention than the leaders of the group. And therefore, the very next day, they decided to kick the psychic out of the group, rewrote the book to not include her, and her labors and works in that group were fruitless in that regard. But what I see around here is, I know there's things happening, but I feel that the people do not have an outlet for what they need. So if there's anybody personally I happen to see, they say, oh, I see something freaky, I send them your way. How many of them join, I don't know.
Right.
But I send them your way, and I tell them, to listen to your guys' programs and everything like that. I don't know what they do. So,
Eric, if I could add to what he's talking about, actually, a professor in California, her last name was McNeil, I believe. She was a folklore professor, and she said that only 16% of Americans are believers. And she said that the highest percentage are on the West Coast, because on the East Coast, it's city and there's too many people, and the word doesn't get out enough. Where over here we had the Indians that talked about, Bigfoot and all those stories there. And when they're talking about like New York and stuff, and they're talking about the how there's so many of the different, groups and they're not lasting, it's exactly because of that, because the social networking and, passing the stories down from generation and stuff, people are more comfortable talking about it when they're part of the tribe, when they, can speak freely. And in New York and the bigger cities, and somebody, gets out on that sidewalk and starts talking about Bigfoot and ghosts and stuff like that, the rest of them kind of looking at him like, whoa, what are you talking about? Because it's against the grain of society, basically, to talk about things like that. Mm-hmm. And so there is a big hush factor on that. And people, they don't want to talk about it. And they found that the 16% of believers is a really low estimate, because if they're given yes or no as the only option for answering on ghosts to Bigfoot, people will all say no because that's the right answer. But if they're allowed to explain their belief system or stories from, they're passed on, they said that it would be over double that.
Mm-hmm. And we do have, the Iroquois Nation and the Oneida Nation. I'm not far. I go to the town of Oneida where the reservation is, and I did a program on Dark 30 a couple years ago regarding the cult in Oneida and the perfectionist cult that was started by the Noyes family, and how if any of you have the Oneida silverware in your house, it's very popular. It's sold all over the United States. I don't know about Canada, but the silver in that cult, it started actually as a perfectionist, utopian, free love, hippie type religious sex cult. And there's not a lot of talk around here in the right circles. We need to repair that.
But there's a lot of things we need to repair, Seth. I mean, this country as a whole is in such disarray, in such division. Just even bringing up paranormal is very low on that list. And when you talk about statistics, Jamie, when you're looking at UFOs, the only reporting center besides FMP that I push people to is Newfork, and even with Newfork's numbers are low, because how many people actually, oh my God, I saw a UFO, and they report it? I've got 5 sightings. I've never reported any of them, and I know, that's probably about 90% of your people. If most of them actually reported them, those numbers would be way higher. And that's just on the UFO side, not the spirit and the Bigfoot side.
Yeah.
I've had like 3 or 4 sightings myself. I've only told 2 people that I know.
And for me personally, it's not that I doubt reporting them. I just don't have time. I don't think about it. It's not on my priority list to report my sightings. When we have our own team and our own group, why am I going to report it to somebody else? But that's just me.
I had a possible sighting last week, and I didn't even tell Eric.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
I did afterwards, but I totally forgot.
Right. You should have called me when you seen it.
When you're driving down the road.
But you know that, and that's that. You're not the only one. Because when we did the FMP booth at the SWAT meet last summer, I can't tell you how many people came up to our booth and Yep, I saw a Bigfoot in Rockport about, last summer. Well, how come I'm just now hearing about it? Or I saw a UFO last week. Again, how come we didn't hear about it? People don't think about reporting these things. FMP is not... you ask half the people upriver if they've ever heard of Forest Moon Paranormal, I can guarantee you, yep, that's that one that gets pushed in the upriver group all the time. Yeah, we're out there, but at the same time, just being at the swap meet last summer, it's amazing. Not everybody is on social media, for one. We know that. Not everybody looks at websites. Not everybody does Google. I guess you have to do flyers. Physical paper.
And it's not
use
just
the smoke signals.
People aren't just not reporting it because they're too busy or anything like that. Some people are scared to. You look at popular culture of what they show when someone reports a UFO or that they saw a ghost or that they saw a Bigfoot. In movies and TV, they're made fun of.
Oh, yeah.
They're ridiculed. Why would someone...
Either that or it just makes whatever's going on worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, they usually save it for the last 5 minutes of a news segment, maybe, or they put it in somewhere, and they'll laugh about it. Oh, and now a cute story out of Two Forks so-and-so, where an old lady reportedly saw a ghost. Oh, that was so funny, Karen. Yes, it was, Dan. Uh-huh. And it's just messed up the way they castigate people. But being this is an anniversary, and it's about growth, and we're talking about the growth and the history of S4, I like to ask everybody here something, and, you guys can answer in turn. What I want to ask you guys is whether or not you started a program like Spaced Out Radio or S4, or whether or not you joined in as a listener and become a member of the team, I want to ask you guys, and maybe we can get some good answers in the chat room too. Is there anything that you have learned about the field of the paranormal that turned out to be different than what you thought? And is there anything maybe that you believed walking into this, or assumed walking into this, that you no longer believe now because of the things you've learned, seen, witnessed, recorded, or whatever?
Yes. I contacted FMP for a personal situation at my work. And getting into FMP, I had no idea of the protection aspect that people needed to be able to deal with the paranormal. I had no idea. There was stones, there was herbs, there was all this kind of stuff. And now I train extended care representatives for FMP on the protection. Yeah, I had no idea there was so much to it. So yes, I learned a lot about it.
I learned that too, yeah.
Okay, and before we carry on, we have to go to break. So hold those thoughts, and when we come back, we'll get to those answers.
You are listening to S4 on Spreaker.com.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
We've had several days of 80-degree plus weather here in Concrete, Washington. My family's favorite way to keep cool in this heat is to stop by Java Zone 2 and grab a delicious iced latte for me and a blended mocha for my husband. Our son just loves their creamy milkshakes, and our daughter can't get enough of their ice cream. The best part is, Java Zone 2 is conveniently located just off Highway 20 beside Loggers Landing, and I'm proud to shop local for a business that has been a staple of the Concrete and Upriver community since it opened its doors in 2010. So if you're looking for a way to keep cool in this summer heat, come check out Java Zone 2. They're fast, friendly, and local.
Hello, my name's Cole Wegleitner with Statement of Sound DJ Productions. We do mixing, monitoring, recording, and editing for all your audio needs. For our local listeners in the Skagit area, we are taking bookings for your 2019 events and parties. We have a wide array of music from any genre. Please allow us to help you make these memories last forever. Contact us at 360-999-2830 or on Facebook at www.facebook.com/SOSDJPro.
Forest Moon Paranormal is a non-for-profit emergency response team that handles all aspects of the paranormal, helping you, your family, friends, and community since 2004. Whether you're having a problem with hauntings, spirits, Bigfoot, other types of cryptids, or UFO activity. Maybe you're just unsure of what's bothering or terrifying you. Or maybe you're just afraid of criticism and disbelief. FMP is here for you. We handle cases globally and locally from our headquarters in Skagit County, Washington. We never accept any form of payment for our services and are 100% confidential. You can find us on Facebook under Forest Moon Paranormal. You can private message us for assistance, or just come join in the discussion and become part of our growing FMP community.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you will be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Join us on September 28th at the Cedro Woolley Community Center for 2019 Forest Moon Paranormal Paracon. VIP All Access passes on sale now at fmparacon.com. Your pass includes all-day admission to see the speakers and workshops, the Ghost Walk, a special VIP workshop, a special round table with the speakers, a Paracon t-shirt, and an FMP Paracon swag bag. These tickets can be purchased from fmparacon.com. Get yours today.
Hey everyone, Cole here with S-4 Paranormal Radio, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. Looking for a way to get the word out there about your business, group, team, or product? Let us help you. A few clicks is all it takes to get started at s-4radio.com, or you can contact me at 360-999-2830.
Welcome back to S-4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Welcome back to S4 tonight. S4 is 3 years old. You can also find the archives at our Spreaker site and on the S4 YouTube channel for all the shows you've missed in the last 3 years. Anyway, back to the show. So, real quick, Seth, if you could repeat your question.
Okay, my question is this. Whether or not you guys are here as a listener who became a member of the team, whether or not, Dave, this for you, Eric, this for you, Cole, everybody who's here. I want to ask every one of you, what is something that you may see differently about the paranormal than when you first had an experience or got involved in the media aspect? And what is something that you feel is different or has changed in the trends of the paranormal since you've started?
Can I go a little humorous on this?
By all means.
One of the trends that I see is every 6 months we see or 8 months we see a transition into all of these so-called experts. When I first started, it was about being part of a paranormal team, and everybody was who I was in contact with was having a television pilot filmed, and they were trying to get their name out there a little bit more to promote it for the television pilot, and they were going to be signed. Well, none of them got signed. Then it switched over to everybody became a demonologist. And I think the funniest one that I saw was a 22-year-old kid, and I realize he's a young adult, but my age at 46, he's a kid, saying that he had been a demonologist for 5 years. And that's where I knew that group was full of crap. And then it went to Bigfoot, and everybody going after the science of Bigfoot. And while they were doing that, they transitioned that Bigfoot's no longer the cool topic. We all got to investigate Dogman. Everybody became a Dogman specialist. And then it went into the Mandela effect. And, everybody was... every time you mention the Mandela effect, the first thing everybody says is the Berenstain Bears. I don't care about that. So it's just these funny trends where all of these people pick up. And if we go to it now with the UFOs, we see a lot of people now, because UFOs are the hot button topic and are getting a lot of mainstream play, then we all of a sudden now see all of these so-called researchers and investigators saying, I'm a journalist. I'm a UFO journalist. I'm an investigative journalist. And they have no clue what being a journalist means. And I've actually started calling out a few on social media and behind the scenes, calling them a liar. Because my point is, I know there's one guy out there, calls himself an investigative journalist. He's a barista, not a journalist. He's a barista. And he's got a television show out of it. He's speaking at about 8 or 9 conferences all around the United States this year. And I'm telling people, or when you talk to people about him, yeah, but he's a nice guy. I said, okay, he's a nice guy who is lying about his credentials, and if he's willing to lie about his credentials, how the hell can we trust his research?
Well, he's on Google.
And exactly. But the whole point that I'm getting at is every 6 to 8 months we see this shift in new people trying to promote their own popularity by coming up with this self-titling. And I think that's the most hilarious thing, because they think they're doing themselves better for popularity, when in the end everybody wants that mainstream acceptance, and the mainstream looks at us and says, you guys are a bunch of idiots, and that's where you'll stay.
We don't get any big names that come on the show. Dave Scott, that's a big name. But I don't try to get Nick Pope or I understand most of those guys, they don't have time to come on a little show that has low numbers. I don't go for numbers. So we've been on 2 different networks, and both those networks, we've got 100,000 listeners. Well, here's how I look at it, and I'm not going to say the networks we were on. I'm not going to go there, but I look at their chat rooms, and I compare them to, say, Spaced Out Radio's chat room, and both these networks had maybe 3 or 4 people in the chat rooms. Whereas you, Dave, have a good 30 to 40 just in your chat room alone. That speaks volumes. That doesn't count the listeners that are on your terrestrial stations that are on, just listening to the show and aren't in a chat room. So in S4, we might have 10, maybe 20 sometimes in the chat room. But at the same time, we have another 40 or 50 that are listening that aren't in the chat room. And then because of the hour that we are on, we have more that listen to the afterplay. So those are the numbers I'll look at. And I know my numbers aren't even accurate just because there's so many apps that we're on now, they don't reflect on Spreaker. And that's where my numbers come from. Spreaker. So I can't give you accurate numbers. But that's not my goal. What's exciting is when I look at what countries are listening. I mean, I remember what was it a few months ago, Cole, that, oh my God, dude, we've got a listener in Vietnam. I mean, like,
oh no, Moldova, yeah. The Republic of Moldova. That one was weird.
Yeah, I mean, we get listeners in some very exotic
and
countries.
One of the ones I remember being on, we had Croatia as well.
Yeah, we still have Croatia. Croatia still pops up. I mean, it's like, now that's cool. Even if it's one listener in Croatia, people talk. And all of a sudden, you might have 2 or 3 listeners in Croatia. I know we've got listeners in Italy, France, all over Europe, all the time. Every week we have...
in Ireland. Ireland is big.
Ireland is big. We actually got... Dublin, Ireland actually made the number 1 of our top 10 cities for about 2 weeks.
I think it's mostly the leprechauns seeing if we're talking about them.
It was. It had to have been the leprechauns. But, no, so my point is, if you're after numbers, yeah, and Izzy says Honduras, yeah, and that's, who do we have in Honduras? Bobby, yeah. And Bobby is big into Astral. And again, he wanted to hear Astral. And it just happened when he messaged me and said he wanted his favorite topic he wanted to hear us talk about was Astral. It just so happens the very next week we were actually doing an Astral show. And, so my point is, if your whole goal is to go after numbers and get big ratings, you're probably not going to. You can get ratings without even trying. Just be yourself. Talk the topics you know about. Talk the topics that you actually have been in the field for and that your team actually does on a daily basis. That's where you might start getting listeners. But if you're sitting there talking off Google, you're not going to get very many listeners.
I want to say something encouraging to you guys, though. And this is whether or not you have big numbers. It's a challenge for everybody here, really. Not to do, but just to think about the challenge of it, per se. We talk about some pretty different stuff. Aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot, missing time during abductions, time slips, time travel, pointing sticks, a whole lot. We talk about all that. We get the listeners, we get the feedback, we get emails tagged in social media. That's good. And it's a real good thing you're doing, and don't ever lose sight of it, whether or not you make a dime. Because you go out on a street corner, you go out to Public in the mall, and you just stand there. You go to Walmart, you stand there. Walmart's where you see the craziest of the crazy.
Yeah.
And you stand there in the middle of that store, and you start talking about all this stuff. And there are people who are going to poke, prod, laugh, giggle, chortle, snort, probably throw stuff at you, look at you sideways.
At Walmart?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you get that when you're just walking in there, but it's going to be magnified if you start talking about the paranormal. You just stand in the middle of aisle 8A, and you start discussing how many people are getting abducted. You're going to get treated differently. when you're able to do this on a platform of your choosing, whether or not you do it Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Spreaker, whatever, and you can get one person to feel better, and they know they're not alone, and you get them to know, hey, look, there are other people out here like you who can't explain what's standing at the foot of their bed looking at them in the middle of the night. But I can say, a lot of us who are up now at this hour, especially here on the East Coast, we already know what that's like because we miss sleep. We lose sleep over this, not knowing the answers.
Mm-hmm.
So pat yourselves on the back, whether or not you get, one person to listen to you, or 100 or 100,000. You're doing something that's changing the world, and you're doing something that a lot of people who may have experienced even more than any of us here combined, but are still afraid to talk about it.
And, go ahead.
There's somebody that a lot of people would be very surprised about, and that is Teddy Roosevelt, who he was born in mid-1800s, and he died in 1919. He was not afraid one bit to go out and write a book all about his hunting trips out in the Selkirk mountain range, where he heard all the stories about Bigfoot and stuff, and he went right out and he put it out in a book and everything. He was the president of the United States even back then and did it.
Right. And you look at, so we've actually done a presidential show. I don't think there's a topic we haven't talked about on S4, and I think one of my favorite shows, besides the presidential show, was actually when we did the one on UFO cults and contactees. And that was actually back in 2016. One of the first few episodes we did. And so, getting to your question, Seth, I used to do a lot of research on the topics that we were doing for S4. And I think that's where my eyes got opened the most. Anymore, I still do what research I can, but that's why I've got a panel. If I don't have time to do the research because I'm doing homework, or we get slammed with a whole buttload of cases, and I just don't have time to research, I've got Cole, I've got Chris, I've got Brent, I've got Thomas, I've got Jamie, I've got a panel. And that's what makes our show unique. We have a panel on every show. Other shows, and I'm not talking down to them, but other shows, you might have a host and maybe a co-host. I think when you have a panel, you have a whole lot of minds to bring out information on a topic.
This is true.
Okay, in order to answer your question, I have to tell you how I first heard of FMP and S4.
Mm-hmm.
So I first heard of FMP and S4 in 2016. My wife has always been big into ghosts. And she saw an ad on Facebook for Paracon, the very first. She showed it to me and wanted to go to this thing. And I looked at her and said, "Are you nuts?" Why would you go to that? I have so many things I got to do. No, we're not going. So then we're up late one night, and she is on her headphones, on her phone. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm listening to a radio show." "What is it?" She said, "It's called S4. And I'm like, "What is S4?
And this, wait. This was in 2016?
Yeah. This was towards the end of 2016, I believe. Just like, this was right after Paracon, I think.
Wow. See, I wasn't even aware of that. I knew you were...
Right?
Because you were in 2018's Paracon, and you're talking 2016's Paracon? You knew about us, 3 years ago?
So she tells me, and I listened to you guys for about 5 minutes, and I walk away shaking my head. I'm like, what are you filling your head with, woman? And then about, I'd say it was April 2018, I get a message on Facebook because I'm part of the Concrete and Upriver group, and it's Eric Cooper asking if I'd like to be the DJ for one of his events.
Yeah,
and I'm like, sure, what is it?
Because you had put an ad out that you were you were a DJ and that you were wanting to do weddings and whatnot, and I was like, I looked at Izzy and I said, hey, we need a sound system person, don't we? And she said, yeah, that would help. How much did he charge? And so, so go ahead.
So we talked for a minute, and I said I'd do it. And I just wanted publicity for it, so everything was set. And I tell my wife, Kayla, who's in the chat room with us a lot, I tell her, so I'm doing this event in September. And she says, well, what is it? I said, it's this weird ghost convention called Paracon. And she just looks at me. She hits me on the shoulder. She says, you're a jerk. I had completely forgotten about all the stuff 2 years before. No idea what she was talking about. And I think it was 2 weeks before Paracon that last year, we had a meeting to make sure everything was set. And I arrived early. Eric asked me, would you like to be part of the team? And I couldn't think of how I could help this team. Because I know nothing about ghosts. I know nothing about aliens. I know nothing about Bigfoot, really. They still don't completely interest me. Like, I'm interested, but not to the point that a lot of our team members are. But I looked more into what this team does. And it's basically, it comes down to they help people. No matter what comes out of it, that is what I'm interested in. As anything to do with helping people, I am always willing to help with. So I accepted a few things that I did learn, because I joined as an open skeptic, which means I'm skeptical of it, but I'm very willing to learn, very willing to listen. And if you can convince me, I'm there. The first one was Astral. And it was a case that Brent was doing. Eric put me into the chat for it. And when he described the kid's bedroom to the mother, that absolutely convinced me that Astral was real. This was a family in northern Alberta, my home area, and Brent was able to see it from Washington. There is no way he could have known that information.
And that's what did it. Because if Brent really didn't see it and this person said, no, it's not like that, then that would have sealed the deal for you.
Right? Yeah, and honestly, it would have. But it's amazing what this team does, and hearing the reactions of people, reading their text messages after they've been helped, hearing how well they are afterwards. That's what makes me part of this. That's what makes me want to do this all the time.
That is an awesome feeling. That is awesome when I say that.
So, Brent.
Oh, yes.
So, what's your answer? You've been on S-4 for a while.
Yeah, off and on. Yeah. Well, what brought me here was, as Chris said, the incident at the motel, and well, no, but
that brought us to SOR.
Yeah.
Well, we first listened to SOR. Followed Dickie.
After Paracon.
I didn't even know that S4 was going until, like, Izzy had to tell me, like, 5 times. But we fought for a long time.
That's true.
Keep the hair Scott. Yep.
That's true, yeah.
Listen to him every night for, a while until we figured out there was a...
And then finally, one meeting at the Annie's Pizza, actually Corey told me about it, and it's like, oh, hey, okay, I'll check it out. I checked it out that Saturday, and been addicted since.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to be addicted when you're on the show.
Well,
I don't know what you're talking about. I can quit anytime.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't even know paranormal radio or anything about it.
No, yeah. No.
What?
Actually, what was after Paracon in 2017, Dave gave me a sticker, an SOR sticker, which I still have, and that's what started it. We're like, this guy gave us a sticker. Maybe we should go listen to him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's the Yep.
Yeah, Dave, you're going to need to bring some of those to Paracon because I'm going to need a new one for the new car.
I got to get new ones made up here very soon.
Excellent.
But now, Dave sells socks. Spaced out radio socks.
Spaced
Not anymore. That's on hiatus right now.
Seriously?
Yeah.
No socks?
No socks right now.
Oh, man.
Dang, my feet were cold.
So, are you going to have socks for sale by Paracon?
I don't know. We had to make a shift in our business plan and redo our entire website. So I have to see what's going to be coming up on our store soon. I should have some answers within the next week or two.
I got to ask, are these new socks or socks previously worn by Dave?
No, Carl.
Well, we raided Brent's drawer, and we took all the ones with holes in them. Just left them with about 3 socks.
You know, a show on weird stuff sold on eBay. Well-worn socks would be in the top 10.
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
I'm just saying, that is actually a business model. There are people that will buy that stuff online.
Find a need, fill a need, first rule of business.
Dave, did you say drawer?
Pardon me?
Did you say Brent socks?
Yep.
Yeah.
I heard it.
You did. Ooh, Brent, you better go to the hospital and check on your socks.
You got him.
I have a story to tell about my first change of my beliefs and stuff, and that was back in the concrete page, as a matter of fact. And there was a local gentleman who kind of got right on a post and said, I don't know who you are, talking about Eric. Don't know where you're from. I don't know what you're all about, but you're basically full of crap, and been here all my life, and a local this, that, and the other thing, and you can just take me off your page. And it was kind of like, I've been reading stuff, that Eric had posted and things like that, and I knew about the paranormal and stuff that there people were talking about and stuff. But other than that, I didn't know too much. But I was so upset because there was this guy, and then this other lady jumps on the bandwagon too. And I popped up and because it said born and raised here, and I'm local and stuff. And I said, well, born and raised here, and I'm a local. And I said, and you two ought to be ashamed of yourself because you're just downright rude, and we were raised better than that. And I said, and Eric Cooper, he might be batshit crazy and all, but I said, you're a good guy for our community, and they can just piss off. And I said, and from that point on, it was like, hey, these guys aren't half bad. That it's not crazy, but okay. And it's one thing, if they had to actually listen to y'all and stuff, people would change their mind a little bit, because I know I thought you're all a bunch of lunatics believing in aliens and stuff.
but you've got lights over Haystack Mountain. How are we that crazy?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
Sorry,
I wasn't
I'll turn 'em
talking
off.
about it yet on the line and stuff either.
And yeah, Izzy's in the chat room. She remembers that guy. So do I. And you know, when we first started the Upriver group, things have gotten a lot better. They really have. Because I would say, going by numbers in FMP, I would say there's probably about 100 out of 12,000. Granted, we're a global group, but I'd say about probably close to 100 people in that group live upriver. That might be a high number, but pretty darn close. Now, we started the Upriver group in, I want to say 2014, immediately after the Christmas parade in Concrete, because not many people showed up. There were probably about 20 people. And I looked at Izzy and I was like, really? It's a Christmas parade. I remember growing up, you go to a Christmas parade, the entire community shows up. Something's wrong here. So
I didn't know we had one.
Well, there's your point. There's my point. And, you know, coming from an emergency management, coming from a military and emergency management background, I was like, we need to start a group, not just because nobody showed up at the Christmas parade, but to push out emergency, disaster prep information, things of that nature. So we started the group. That's why the Upriver group was started. Not just for emergency, information, but hey, everyone, check it out. The Christmas parade is this Saturday. There needs to be more community involvement in events. That's why the group was started. And, being heavily paranormal, obviously, we're going to promote Forest Moon Paranormal. We're going to talk Bigfoot. We're going to, when it comes to the community side of it. And of course, we didn't hear Bigfoot knocks until about 2016, so it was a couple of years after that group was even started. And prior to that, there's a lot of people upriver that have had Bigfoot encounters. But like we said earlier, not many talk about it. So when we first started the Upriver group, the first time the FMP promo was put out, there was a lot of ridicule. There was a lot of, oh my God, you guys are just crazy. You're that crazy guy. And, but now I go by likes. And back then you might get an angry face. And if you're on Facebook, you know what I'm talking about. Or the laughing face. Because I think you're crazy. And anymore, though, we do the FMP promo, you see about 4 or 5 likes at least. Which tells me, and so anytime we get a new member in FMP, I always look at where they're at. Australia, cool. Rockport, oh my God. And I got to give a shout out real quick. Keith is in the chat room. I'm glad you're here. We're all thinking about you.
Yeah, we love you, friend.
Definitely, brother.
I told you to take the night off.
Condolences.
But from everybody on S4, our condolences.
Absolutely.
So we'll get Keith back on next week. Next week we are talking UFOs in 2019. So it'll be Dave and Keith. Cole is going to go spend the weekend with his family.
Fine.
So, Jamie, I've got to ask, and I want your opinion. Why do you think the attitude or the perception of the paranormal upriver has changed? Do you think it's because we have more new people moving up here every week? Or do you think it's just because people are starting to understand paranormal is a normal way of life for some?
Well, with some of the oddities of the upriver folks alone, the paranormal's probably not as scary anymore. You know, the hill people, you know, just the ways of the country folks, you know, them sticks and up in those hills and stuff, they scare people more than the aliens do, I think.
I can relate to that here in Brookfield, New York. That's all I'm going to
Yay,
say.
there you go.
The hills do have eyes.
In New York?
But
yes,
actually,
I'm in country. I'm in cow country.
Okay.
Actually, Eric, I think you have a lot to do with that, though, because of all the work you're doing with the emergency, you know, preparedness and stuff like that, and with the concrete page and things, people are getting to know you better, you know, even if they, you know, are only knowing the online person or whatever, but they're seeing that you're legit and you're doing good things for the community. And, well, you know, of course, you're not a local or anything, but I think that they're seeing that you're, you know, totally legit. And so it's kind of like, well, you know, he's not all that bad. And so I think that's really where a lot of it comes from, is just your actual personal reputation and stuff.
Yeah, and he's very much become a local celebrity.
Oh, don't use that word. I'm no celebrity by any means.
Your beard is, though.
Legend.
Fine, if you don't want to be a celebrity, you're the local boogeyman.
That's fine too. I think what they need to understand, though, is I'm more local than they realize, because I might not be local as far as I wasn't born and raised in concrete, but I was born and raised in Skagit County.
You're in Clear Lake, weren't you?
No, I was in Big Lake.
Oh, Big Lake. I just thought it was funny that none of those people that were complaining on you being an out-of-towner knew that Big Lake was actually a local.
Right.
I thought it was kind of funny.
And not only that, but I do come from 3 or 4 generations of Skagit County residents. So I am generational, just not upriver generational.
Well, your beard might be, though.
It is. It grows on trees.
It is its own entity.
So, yeah, for our listeners, so Paracon is in September, and it's coming really quick. Jamie is going to be there as a volunteer. Actually, everybody on the show tonight is going to be at Paracon. Well, except Seth. But we'll get Seth here. We'll get Seth here from New York one of these years.
As soon as we get that transporter working.
Yep.
By golly.
The time travel machine.
I'm working on it.
You better work harder.
Sorry, the quantum mechanics are really difficult.
So, Dave, I'm going to ask you a trick question.
Sure.
So, of the shows you've been on, the topics we've talked about here on S4, what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, you know what? The way I have kind of matured in this, because I've only been doing this just a hair longer than you have on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that you and I and Keith had a great debate probably a year and a bit ago regarding UFOs and alien abduction and good contact versus bad contact. This is before everything started going very political. And Keith was, I think he put me in my spot there. I mean, you have to know Keith to understand he does not have a mean bone in his body. But I think it got to the point where he had an answer for everything, and I eventually just had to shut up. And that's hard to shut me up because I'm a big mouth.
I'm trying to remember that show. I mean, oh my God, we've done 52 times 3.
It might be going back about 2 years ago then, shortly after Keith. I mean, you're a thief. You stole Markham from me. You stole Keith from me. You're just a thief.
I am.
Well, and if you think about it, he stole me from you too.
True.
Because, like, I moved down here, so.
Yeah, you're being Canadian. You stole coal. Right?
And I don't regret it.
But
I don't regret any of it. I'd do it again.
but on a serious note, I think one of the ones where it really kind of hit me was you asked me to come on earlier this year because the disclosure aspect was really, really coming forward. And you asked me to come on and break it down for you. And I've never really considered myself a very knowledgeable person on it. That's why I host a talk show, because I bring on the people that were knowledgeable, and you really brought the A game because you wanted your listeners to understand, both sides of the ledger when it came to this newfound disclosure movement. And you guys asked some pretty pertinent questions, that's for sure.
Well, you might not be the master of the topic, but you have the guests that are the masters of the topic. So I figured you would glean enough information to be able to break it down.
Well, I do my best. That's for sure.
Well, you do. And yeah, I remember that show. I was back in January. We actually changed some topics around to fit that because disclosure was supposed to be happening. In fact, I think we moved the Blue Book show to fit the disclosure show, which the Blue Book show, I wasn't impressed because, well, the Blue Book show didn't impress me none. It impressed some people, but I expected a lot more from Blue Book.
Yeah, even with Unidentified that's on right now, you have to realize us in this field, like the people on this panel, the people who are listening, we don't need convincing. What these television shows are doing now, whether it's Blue Book, whether it's Unidentified, they are trying to get the message to the mass audience that thinks that we're still a bunch of non-graduate hicks with no dental plan and
tons of tinfoil.
Tons of tinfoil around our house, exactly.
Now, and let's talk about that for a second. And I know, here on S4, we do bounce around a lot. That's just kind of what we do on S4. If disclosure happens, is that going to change S4?
No.
I think it does.
How do you think it does?
The reason it does is just like I have now been thinking, what's the merits of spaced out radio if disclosure happens? Because the problem that you're going to have, and the problem that we are seeing right now, is you have to think of it with a mainstream focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize that I'm going more mainstream and you're kind of niche in what you do. But I think where it changes everything is I think that the minute people start getting scared, that there is going to be a ton of hoaxers come out, a lot of people with psychological problems that come out of the woodwork who think they're going to get their 15 minutes of fame. I think that there's an entire audience out there that is all of a sudden going to become very creative and wanting to learn more, and they're not going to know where it turns. I'm already seeing it with my audience. I mean, in the last month, I've gained almost 1,000 followers on Twitter just because people are now seeking out these messages, wanting to know what is going on. They've never communicated with me, but all of a sudden, you get somebody out there in the middle of nowhere that you've never heard of, and they're saying, hey, great show, thank you for broadcasting this. I never knew. So the more that it opens up to the masses and the more that the mainstream starts understanding that this is true phenomenon that is going on, the more we are going to be shoved into this, I hate to use this word, but I will, expert category that we know what's going on. And eventually, we're all going to have to shift. Because on the mainstream side, where people like you and me and everybody listening is going to get frustrated, all of a sudden we're going to see all of these talking heads who used to laugh at ufology all of a sudden become these expert reporters and expert talk shows hosts about the subject because they read Whitley Strieber's Communion and they picked up a book by Nick Pope. Right?
I agree.
You know, I'm scared when it comes to disclosure, and also intrigued. And what I'll tell you is, it's like Dave said, we don't need convincing.
No.
But I've always thought that when they do disclose whatever information, it's not going to be full disclosure. They're going to say what's there.
Oh,
but then they're going to feed it to you in a way that they want you to absorb it, because they want to make sure that you are in check with their narrative. I forget the document, and I read it probably about 6 months ago. Maybe you guys will know what I'm talking about and be able to correct me. But it was a document that the government put out, and they discussed the terms they use. Like, for example, we say UFO, they say unidentified aerial phenomenon. And in that, when they were discussing the definition of an alien, they said anything that we decide is a threat that we don't like, that is what we are going to use the term alien on.
And that's dangerous. That's dangerous right there. And, you know, like we said on SOR last night, you've got Greer sitting over here on the left saying all aliens are wonderful. There's no such thing as a bad alien. You've got Tom DeLonge sitting on the right saying, shoot them all down. There's no such thing as a good alien. There is no middle ground. And these are the ones that are going to try to define that narrative.
Eric, can I mention a couple of things,
if
you don't mind, pertinent to this conversation? When To the Stars Academy came out in October of 2017,
right,
I was one of the only few, and when I say only few, I'm saying maybe a handful or two people that were saying Robert Bigelow is involved with this.
Mm-hmm.
Even though his name is not attached, Robert Bigelow is highly involved with this project. And up until recently, people were saying to me, Bigelow is not involved. There's no information tying Bigelow to the Stars Academy. So for people who don't know who Robert Bigelow is, he's a billionaire hotel chain owner out of Nevada who has a very, very high intrigue in UFOs. I highly suggest you look him up, especially his 60 Minutes interview from May of 2017, where he basically came out on 60 Minutes saying, yes, aliens are real. You don't need to leave the planet to see aliens and UFOs.
Right.
Anyhow, long story short, what happens on the final episode last night of the 6 episodes series of Unidentified? They bring up Robert Bigelow's name. Okay.
I'll have to look that up.
Mm-hmm. The second point I want to make, I had a conversation with somebody who used to be a spy. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And in the UFO world. And that's all that I will title it. It was a man, and that's all I will say. Private conversation. And I asked him point blank. I said, let me give you a theory, and I want you to tell me whether I'm true or not. I said, the ATIP program, which stands for Advanced Aerial Identification Program. I said, if you're telling me, I said, I'm thinking since Roswell, we have been in communication with extraterrestrials. He goes, yes. I said, here's my theory, and I want you to tell me how correct I am. So my theory is this. I think that the ATIP program is not for the species that the government already knows about. The ATIP program is about these aliens that have not checked in, coming in and out of planets.
Right.
Okay, so if you go back to the movie Men in Black,
yeah,
okay, as hokey as it sounds, where the aliens have to check in.
That's the first thing I was thinking about when you said that.
Exactly. Okay. He told me that there are 4 to 5 different species of aliens that have not checked in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what has the U.S. government worried. Okay? This is what has the U.S. government looking for these phenomena. And I honestly think this ATIP program is a deflection from the species that we're already in contact with to find the species that we don't know that are coming here.
Well, it comes down to national security when you look at it from that aspect of it. Are you still
Real
there,
quick, I gotta... Oh. Everybody all right?
Yeah, I'm
here. Yes.
Okay.
I just heard like a weird sound.
Yeah, it sounded like Dave was trying to talk. I'm not sure. You still there, Dave?
I am still here.
There you are. Okay. No, I could barely hear you when you responded. So yeah, I think it comes down to national security, and I think it's paranoia on that aspect of it. You only have four or five races that haven't checked in, and they want to make sure they're not a global threat. Now, to be honest with you, and we're coming down to close to the top of the hour, and we got to go to break, but I think when it comes to shows like S-4, I'm not going to have to shift. The show's not going to have to shift, but I do think we're going to get a lot busier, because I think when it comes down to disclosure, you're giving the green light to all the people that haven't been able to talk about it. The green light to the ones that need help. The green light to the ones that want to tell their story. And they're the ones that are going to come flocking. Now, like you said, Dave, you've got, 1,000 more followers on Twitter?
Yeah.
I think that's why. You know, last year, if you saw CNN or Channel 4 or, even Fox News talk about UFOs, there was a smirk, like you said, Seth. It's 2019, and you've got, what's his name, Rogan, talking to Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no smirk. There was no, do you believe in UFOs? No. It was a serious conversation.
Yeah, that was Tucker Carlson yesterday.
Tucker Carlson, there you go.
You know, and if you looked at that interview, closely yesterday,
mm-hmm.
when Carlson asked President the questions, okay, what his mouth was saying was not reflective of his body language. And I was talking to Rich Giordano about this after the interview yesterday, and Rich agreed with me. The president looked extremely uncomfortable in answering those questions. Now, what I want a lot of people to understand is when you interview the president of the United States, all of the questions are pre-screened. You cannot deviate from those questions in an interview. So right. President Trump knew those questions were coming. And if you watch the video of that interview again, because you may not have noticed, all right, watch his body language comparatively to the words. Watch his eyes shifting. Watch his hands. Watch his shoulder movement. Watch his breathing. He looked very uncomfortable in answering those questions. And why should he? Why should he? He knew the questions were coming.
Right.
Chris and Brent got dropped, just so you know.
Yeah, no, I'm pulling it back in. But
Just because he knew they were coming doesn't mean that he liked the questions.
I understand that, but the way, from what I have learned from a lot of people who have studied the UFO and the presidential cycle in regards to it, those questions, when they're asked, he's still prepared for them. He has worked with his team on his press team on how to answer those questions. Doesn't matter if it's Trump, if it was Obama, if it was Clinton, if it was Bush Jr., they all have been trained on how to answer those questions. And to me, the president looked very uncomfortable in answering those.
which is interesting, Dave, because like I said before, what caught my attention, the other presidents that have answered the same question about UFOs, they laughed. There was humor there, and they said, well, if I knew, I couldn't tell you. There was no smile. There was no joking. There was no laughing. He didn't even try to make a joke out of it, like the other presidents have done. He was serious the whole time. And, coming from him where he's saying, I don't believe in UFOs personally, his body language said otherwise, like you said.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
He's also the president that brought up a space force. Why do we need a space force? It's enough for space junk.
Space oil.
Yeah. We're going to go get the oil out of Mars.
But here's the other thing too, Eric, in regards to President Trump. Okay, and this isn't getting political. It doesn't matter whether you like him or not.
Oh no.
He has been always known as a conspiracy theorist. Prior to taking the audience, he was somebody who hung out a lot with Jesse Ventura, had a lot of conversations with Jesse Ventura, the former Minnesota governor, and big-time conspiracy theorist. He thought 9/11 may have been an inside job. There's a lot of things that Trump used to say. So when you have a guy who's been on records basically claiming to be a conspiracy theorist, okay, who's now sitting in the Oval Office and says, well, I don't believe in them. Bull crap.
Yeah.
Bull crap.
Completely agree. And with that, hold your thoughts. We got to go to our second and last break. And when we come back, we'll carry on this conversation.
You are listening to S-4 on Spreaker.com.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
We've had several days of 80-degree plus weather here in Concrete, Washington. My family's favorite way to keep cool in this heat is to stop by Java Zone 2 and grab a delicious iced latte for me and a blended mocha for my husband. Our son just loves their creamy milkshakes, and our daughter can't get enough of their ice cream. The best part is, Java Zone 2 is conveniently located just off Highway 20 beside Loggers Landing. And I'm proud to shop local for a business that has been a staple of the Concrete and Upriver community since it opened its doors in 2010. So if you're looking for a way to keep cool in this summer heat, come check out Java Zone 2. They're fast, friendly, and local.
Hello, my name's Cole Wegleitner with Statement of Sound DJ Productions. We do mixing, monitoring, recording, and editing for all your audio needs. For our local listeners in the Skagit area, we are taking bookings for your 2019 events and parties. We have a wide array of music from any genre. Please allow us to help you make these memories last forever. Contact us at 360-999-2830 or on Facebook at www.facebook.com/SOSDJPro.
Forest Moon Paranormal is a non-for-profit emergency response team that handles all aspects of the paranormal, helping you, your family, friends, and community since 2004. Whether you're having a problem with hauntings, spirits, Bigfoot, other types of cryptids, or UFO activity. Maybe you're just unsure of what's bothering or terrifying you. Or maybe you're just afraid of criticism and disbelief. FMP is here for you. We handle cases globally and locally from our headquarters in Skagit County, Washington. We never accept any form of payment for our services and are 100% confidential. You can find us on Facebook under Forest Moon Paranormal. You can private message us for assistance, or just come join in the discussion and become part of our growing FMP community.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the S-4 Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Join us on September 28th at the Cedro Woolley Community Center for 2019 Forest Moon Paranormal Paracon. VIP All Access passes on sale now at fmparacon.com. Your pass includes all-day admission to see the speakers and workshops, the Ghost Walk, a special VIP workshop, a special round table with the speakers, a Paracon t-shirt, and an FMP Paracon swag bag. These tickets can be purchased from fmparacon.com. Get yours today.
Hey everyone, Cole here with S-4 Paranormal Radio, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. Looking for a way to get the word out there about your business, group, team, or product? Let us help you. A few clicks is all it takes to get started at s-4radio.com, or you can contact me at 360-999-2830.
Welcome back to S-4 with your host, Eric Cooper.
Welcome back to S4 tonight. S4 is 3 years old. You also need to find the archives at our Spreaker site and on the S4 YouTube channel for all the shows you've missed in the last 3 years. Anyway, back to the show. So, we were talking disclosure. We were talking about Trump and his interview he did, yesterday, Dave?
Yes.
That just came out yesterday. Did they ever do... Yeah, they did. So, the commentator that was talking about their perception of how Trump acted, they didn't even bring anything up. They didn't talk about his body language or did he believe or did he not believe, yada, yada, yada. What have you heard since after the show?
Well, there's a lot of excitement because, this is the first time that a president has been talking about UFOs very openly and candidly, where they have been asked about the phenomenon being real without being on a late night talk show like Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel. Where they the comedian asks the question. And this is a topic that has become very serious. in the past couple of months, we have heard that the United States Navy now has a reporting center for their pilots and their crew members to report anomalous sightings. The Pentagon has come out and said, yes, we have been looking into UFOs. However, somebody forgot to ask the Pentagon spokesperson a simple little question. When did you start looking at them? That might be a little bit important because the public kind of needs to know about Roswell and San Augustine. And so the questioning from the mainstream media, in my opinion, has been extremely basic and very, very softball type questions. And getting back to what Seth said earlier, this is the problem that we are having with this entire field right now, because we have a mainstream media right now that is refusing to ask any questions, any hard questions. You don't see the mainstream media asking anybody from the To the Stars Academy about when they held their press conference in Seattle in 2017. How do you hold a press conference without any press there? Nobody seems to be asking that question.
Right.
I mean, if you're holding a press conference, don't you expect members of the media to be there?
Generally speaking.
Okay. Nobody has asked Lou Elizondo, who paid him after 2012. There's now questions about whether or not he ran the program. Do I think he was involved? Yes, but there are others who don't believe him. You know, we now, if you want to fast forward, we now see people taking the alien autopsy video, and there's giant debate all over social media about whether it's fake or whether it's real again. The problem is nobody is looking at the players when an 11-page document of emails and memorandums between Robert Bigelow and members of his team were talking about that there is a real video of the Roswell alien autopsies. Members had seen it and said that the fake one was similarly close to the real one. And these are questions that are not being asked because the mainstream media has never wanted to cover this topic. They're used to making fun of this topic. And when it comes down to the fact that they were wrong, I know from being a reporter that when you were covering stories that you didn't want to cover, you asked softball questions so you could get in and out. I don't give a shit, pardon my language, about the UFO technology. I already know as an experiencer, this stuff is very real. What I want to know is why are you denying media requests? Why are you not going on certain radio shows or television shows or YouTube channels? All right, these are the questions that are not being asked. It's not being asked of the To the Stars Academy. It's not being asked of the Pentagon. It's not being asked of the United States Navy. And it sure as heck is not being asked of the President of the United States.
Right. And we're going to be beating this topic up hard next week for sure. And before I forget, I want to bring up, so for listeners that haven't heard of Robert Bigelow, go on YouTube and look up Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory. Because Jesse Ventura actually did an episode on Robert Bigelow. And he actually cornered Robert Bigelow in Bigelow Industries and asked him about his involvement with UFOs. So you can go right on YouTube and actually pull up conspiracy theory television shows, all of the archives, for free. And look up the Robert Bigelow episode, and you'll actually hear a lot more about Bigelow from Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theories. Great show, great episode. But is he involved? I think he's involved indirectly. He's just staying behind the scenes and pulling his puppet strings. Just my opinion, though.
I want to tell you guys something that makes me believe that something is on the rise, whether or not it's disclosure or something bigger. Outside of the police forces and firefighters and the military radios, you do know that the ham radio operators are the bulk of emergency communications in the United States, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to let you guys know that I found out that the FCC is working to take away the most popular ham radio band from the ham radio operators, which is the 2-meter band, the band that most everybody operates on. They want to take it away, and they're giving it away to the aeronautical people. All the repeaters that are put up in the 144 to 147 megahertz range
But
will
what's
be outlawed.
interesting with that too, though, because Scanner will still pick that up if you know what the frequency numbers are.
Yes, it will pick up the aeronauticals.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not even giving us digital, because you can do digital and analog and have different conversations on the same frequency.
Right.
They're not even going to give digital. That is the main basis. That's where all the amateurs cut their teeth. Now, why would they, in all the spectrum, I don't know what you guys know about amateur radio, but I know, Eric, you have communication experience from the military. You know that there's several other bands in the spectrum that they could take that wouldn't bother the hams. They're taking... It's like if it were roads telling people that you're no longer allowed to use the main highways and interstates anymore.
Right.
You can only use back roads. That is what they're doing to ham radio, and it is in the works now. And if you go on YouTube and you look up, you guys listening to this can rewind it when you're listening. You're going to look up the videos from a guy, his call sign is KJ4YZI, and he discusses it in detail. And when you think of the impact of taking away the main route of emergency communications in this country, why would they do that? 5G is going up. At the same exact time, they're taking the 2-meter band away. They're completely different frequencies. They could coexist. There's no reason to do that unless there's something bigger that they do not want us to be able to communicate effectively. You have that with a combination that, like, there's certain people I'm not fond of conspiracy-wise on YouTube, but they are really cutting out a lot of YouTube traffic regarding conspiracy, UFOs, paranormal, and things of that nature. And the more they try to silence people and castigate us as crackpots and whatever, and now they're taking away the communications. That, to me, solidifies the idea that it's closer than we think. This 2-meter band has been established since way back in the day. Way back in the day. It's the most popular and active band, and there's no reason for them to take it. So something's coming.
And that leads me to my next question. Where do we see shows like S-4, shows like Spaced Out Radio, the shows that actually cut to the meat of the paranormal and actually talk about real topics, not are demons real? Is everything a demon? How's your K2 work? No, we talk about the real topics. Where do you see shows like ours in 3 years?
To me, that depends on whether or not disclosure comes. I think that if disclosure doesn't come within the next 3 years, I feel that people are going to grow with their experiences, and it depends on the experiences that people have. I mean, if the things from beyond, whether or not they're ghosts, Bigfoot, aliens, whatever you want to say, if they decide, they have an agenda that we don't know about, that's why it's the paranormal. We can all only assume, wonder, sit back and learn. But if there's disclosure, and then it's going to be a whole nother evolution of this war between the government having information that they want released to the public versus those of us who have cut our teeth in this.
Mm-hmm.
They'll basically turn it into a whole new ball game.
It's going to be extra innings and swinging for the fences on our part, because they're going to let loose only what they want to let loose. It may be disclosure, but it doesn't mean they're going to disclose everything. It only means they're going to disclose something, and they're only going to validate something, but not everything, and they have reasons.
Yeah, soft disclosure, yeah.
Soft disclosure, yeah. But why? What do we think they're hiding?
I think they don't want to shake the foundation of humanity as you know it. You got to understand, and you can relate through my own experiences and journeys through religion. If there's something that's beyond this world that puts a big question mark on the main faiths of this world, where you have the Abrahamic religions and you talk about aliens, there's certain people who will try to validate that. When, like, for example, in the Bible, Jesus says, I have sheep not of this fold, or in other translations, I have sheep ye know not of. And people can say, well, maybe it's other people, and other people say, well, that's how the Book of Mormon came about, and that's who he was referring to. But he may have well been referring to other creatures in other realms that we don't know about. But I think if there's something above us, you know, think about the concept of a god back in the day. You take, for example, how they're depicted in the caves, the different things they talk about on ancient aliens. It wouldn't take much if we could time travel to go back in time, say like to the Old West, and convince them that we were a deity. And so with that, there's the idea, you know, that they don't pay attention to us, kind of like we don't pay attention to ants. But in the perspective...
All we'd have to do is go back in time and bring a gun.
Exactly. Rapid fire. You know, sound effects, lasers, flashlights, anything that be considered, you know, amazing to them. So it really wouldn't take much. It really wouldn't take much, and I do not mean this in a bad way. But there are some people out there who are more in tune with things than others, and there are some people out there who carry a certain intellect that's higher than others. And I don't mean to call anybody stupid. I don't believe in the term stupid. I believe in ignorant versus knowledgeable. And ignorant doesn't mean because you haven't studied. It means because you haven't learned. You're on that deserted island. And when they open up this can of worms, it's going to make everybody question everything. And if everything is questioned, the establishment that they have set up as we know it will no longer be sufficient for them to continue to control the people. Because we're going to start asking questions that someone from above, the government is the middleman, and whatever is above us, they are, you know, they're playing nice with the government. They're toying with the government. People seem to think, oh, well, we're the only intelligent beings. But it's like, you know, these aliens at any time can say, you know, to hell with the MIB, to hell with your programs, this is what's really going on. And really, what is our military, what is our world united together going to be able to do against anything? They can travel hundreds of thousands of light years. They can travel interdimensionally. All these things that we're trying to figure out in secret dark rooms, these guys, whatever planet or dimension they're from, they're doing this out in the open. This is, you know, our daily activities to us is what, for them, what they do. We can't assume that we're going to be able to beat these things. It's not Independence Day with Will Smith punching aliens. No, it's not. It's a very real and serious topic. And if they can't control it, who's to say that the next step of, you know, the enemy of the enemy is my friend? Could you imagine global powers, world leaders, Now, for example, the alien race comes down, and you have to be Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un or the Ayatollah in Saudi Arabia, and you're all lined up as the world leaders in front of this council. You have to convince this alien race that may be threatening. You have to convince them as to why they should take up arms with you and enslave the rest of the world or do whatever they're going to do with the rest of the world. And the perfect example of that is the television show The Strain, if you haven't seen that, where the Strigoi creatures, they're vampires, they actually take up some humans. They take up some humans with them, and the humans aid them in exchange for protection and food and clothing, and they have a eugenics program that's not that different from Nazi Germany. In exchange for being protected by these Strigoi creatures, they don't have to worry about being eaten. They don't have to worry about their families being ripped apart. But they aid these Strigoi as humans in killing and dismembering the other humans. So who's to say we won't have a fight like that on our hands?
It reminds me of The Mummy, where the guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy that pulls out every religious symbol he could think of to be the mummy's pet.
Exactly.
And that's what our world leader is going to do. But it's going to end badly for them. And, you know, I agree with Keith, because Keith's in the chat room. He said if they wanted to attack, he wouldn't even know they were going to attack. It'd be over before we even knew they attacked.
Exactly.
You know, and that's just the bottom line. If they wanted to annihilate us, they would. That's why I laugh anytime, you know, well, when's the alien invasion going to come? It's not. They're not going to invade. Because if they wanted to, they would have done it a long time ago. They're watching. They are here.
It's not something they're thinking about. Feeling cute might invade Earth later. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're wondering what went wrong down here.
Well, essentially, yeah. And you know, we've had this talk on S4 in the last few months, but you know, Keith even said, you know, yes, there are more coming here. They are watching, because this is a peak time in human civilization that they're waiting to see what's going to happen. And I know Keith's in the chat room. He's going to laugh at me. But that, you know, that's I agree with him, because I've got to say 2019 has been record-breaking when it comes to the number of sightings that have happened here. It's been a crazy year for UFO sightings, and that's just the ones that get reported. You know, but I get Facebook messaged at least weekly from people saying, "Hey, we've seen 3 or 4 different sightings just a day in the UK." You know, and we're not even talking about Washington. Washington's number 1 for UFO sightings in the United States. And again, not many are getting reported. I've got stacks of papers around here at the house of UFO reportings just for Washington State. And that's just updated like back in January. I can't imagine what's going on now. Have you seen a rise on... I can't remember if I asked you this earlier, Dave, but have you seen a rise in UFOs?
I've seen... I keep hearing that people are saying there's a rise in UFOs right now. I know for me personally, there isn't. And, you know, but I go with what the people are saying. Right. And apparently abductions, and not so much contact, but abductions and sightings are on the rise again.
Right. And, you know, so going to S4, prior shows, so we're on our 3rd year. And, you know, before I would say you see more sightings at Christmas time. You see more sightings at this point. You see more sightings. It's not that way this year. You see more sightings daily. Not at certain celebrations, because so you look at 4th of July, you look at Christmas, you got fireworks in the sky, you've got clear skies, you got more stars out, more people looking. And that would explain why sightings are on the rise. But not in January, not in February, not in March. You've got increased sightings each month, not at a particular time of the year. That's what I go by. That
would also depend on where you're located, though.
It would. But I'm also going by, when the reports come in. And what's unfortunate is people don't take advantage of the FMP reporting. We don't get reports on our report forms. They come to me personally. I wish people would start using the reporting, the form we've got, because then we'd actually have a document to track it with. But no, we're talking different continents, not just in the States. Australia is active. UK is active. Those are the two continents that I've actually talked to, as far as experiencers go. So why 2019?
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
They are bored. I mean, and again, we'll be beating this topic up next week, so I don't want to beat it up right now. But these are the topics that people want to hear about. When I look at the stats on Spreaker for S4, I see more people listening when we talk UFOs and abduction. And that's why I do like doing an abduction show at least every 4 months. Because you have an influx of new listeners every 4 months. So when you start talking about the signs and symptoms of what an abduction looks like, that's when you want to do it, every 4 months. So the people that haven't heard about abduction and think you're a crackpot, and then they start seeing, oh, scoop marks. I've got those. Missing time? Nosebleeds? Huh. And, when you start talking about the signs of paranormal activity in general, footsteps, scratches on the wall, voices, you don't even go into the odors or the pet reactions, things like that. You can write books, and books have been written. Not all of them are accurate. Why are you guys so quiet?
We're listening to you.
Listening to you, boss.
No,
just listening.
You're supposed to be talking. I'm not the only one here to talk.
You're interesting.
I'll tell you right now, and for every listener here, you do know, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. The town I live in, Morrisville, New York, is an important town gathering the interest of the paranormal. Does anybody know why?
Are you in water?
Huh?
Do you have water nearby?
Nope. Well, there's Oneida Lake, but...
Are you near
Green
Montauk Point?
I'll tell you exactly why. Anybody who is into the paranormal, just about, is more than likely a Ghostbusters fan. The third movie is coming out in 2020.
Yeah.
With that being said, Ray Stance's character, this by Dan Aykroyd in the film and Frank Welker in the cartoon, is from Morrisville, New York. Kind of like how Superman is from Metropolis. My local government is not aware of this. I am going to be speaking with people, and I have been active in other areas. I want to get something started here in 2020 to get some kind of paranormal convention going here
but I can't do it alone. If you go on YouTube or wherever and you look up the episode, The Real Ghostbusters, Look Homeward Ray, it's called. And in that video, someone has done their homework, because without the businesses being labeled, I can tell you what street they're on and where they're at. Someone has drawn the cartoon from the town right here where I'm at, Morrisville, New York. Bouckville, which is actually 3 miles up the road. Where I'm at now is Old Bouckville, which is now Morrisville, is the largest antique festival in the United States. This August, I'm going up there and I'm going to be speaking for Forest Moon Paranormal. And I am going to talk to people about the dangers of buying objects because they are haunted.
There you go.
And I want you, Eric, right now, Dave, every one of you who have an opinion on this, to tell people about the dangers of buying these items when people claim that they are haunted, like these Dybbuk boxes on eBay and stuff like that, because nobody listens to me, and people are going to end up seriously in a lot of trouble.
We'll wind up cleaning up the mess, for one. But
Annabelle.
Yeah, Annabelle's a perfect example, and they have a new Annabelle movie coming out, which cracks me up.
Yeah.
But, if people are talking about paranormal objects, and you have all these... We actually started fighting this about 6 years ago. It was roughly 6 years ago. They're still around. These businesses that come out and they talk about they've got a trapped spirit, and you'll find them on eBay every once in a while. Why are you going to buy a trapped spirit? To me, that's and I'm not even being funny here. You got human trafficking, you got spirit trafficking. We're all about respecting spirits, passing them over. You don't go into a haunted location to instigate, to provoke. That's disrespecting the spirit. When you die, do you really want someone to come in there and poke and prod you? Not really. That's why you get more activity, and all these crackpot teams that go running into someone's house asking for help. You go in there, and some of these teams, they get scared, and oh my God, paranormal's real. And they scream, and they run away. And, yeah, slavery is illegal, Keith. So these people that are selling haunted items,
they're stupid.
They're stupid. I will use that word because that is appropriate in that context for sure. But the ones that buy them are just as stupid. Because why are you going to take a haunted item to your house?
Now, Cooper, in my case, if I could, I would buy it and then pass the spirit, just to give that spirit their freedom.
Well, that's where we're different.
There you go.
But these people have no idea how to pass a spirit. You can't tell me half these people, or even 3/4 of these people, know how to pass a spirit over. They're just buying it because it's cool.
Yeah, that's true.
I've got a haunted item. Oh, well, wait. What was that footstep? Oh, wait. Something scratched me. It must be a demon. Yeah. So, no, I agree with you, Seth. That information needs to be passed on. Don't buy haunted items. Put those businesses out of business. What do you got to say, Dave?
I think everybody loves the excitement of having the haunted items and something to talk about. But Seth is completely right that if you don't know what it is and you don't have experience in the paranormal, stay the hell away from it. It's just that simple.
And, you know, again, FMP is not the only emergency response team out there. But there's not enough to clean up the messes that people are going to be creating when they buy these haunted items. That's the bottom line. We're not mainstream. So, and most of your emergency response teams for the paranormal aren't mainstream. Usually by the time people find FMP, they've already had 2 teams. I can try to think. I can't tell you how many cases we've done where they have actually had a team come in, or 2 teams in a few cases. And in like I said, in one case, the team went in, and oh my God, there's something there. Well, now they've, one, validated that there is something there to the client, which makes them even more terrified. And 2, you've pissed off what's there. So now there's going to be even more activity and more of a threat to the client. And now you've run out. You haven't helped anybody. You've shown what a fool you are. So, yeah, if you're not familiar with the dangers of the paranormal or the dangers of buying something haunted, then maybe you shouldn't. But that's the bad point of this field, is that most of the uneducated public, I can't fault them, because they think it's cool.
And you know, Eric,
I mean, then you got people all over YouTube buying Dybbuk boxes and other haunted items because, it's so cool. And, this started happening and that started happening, but, no, they aren't hurt.
Not yet. What were you saying, Jamie?
well, you know, if you watch pretty much any horror stories on the movies or anything like Annabelle, for one, or Amityville Horror, at the beginning of the show, there's a young couple, usually with small children, that are moving into this big old house. It's really, really cheap. And then as a little bit of a slip, the realtor ends up saying something about, oh, yeah, well, it's a shame about what happened to that family in there. And what could go wrong? It does every single time. So that should be enough right there. And I know that you guys are talking serious hauntings and stuff, but isn't that kind of the same thing where you need the disclosure?
Well, so it came up a couple of years ago that there was supposed to be disclosure with real estate companies. But for most states and most real estate companies, all they have to disclose if there was a death in the house. Not if there is paranormal activity. They usually, again, that's where the mainstream media has done wrong. They don't care about paranormal activity because it doesn't exist. It's paranormal. It's not a disclosed or a disclosure thing. It's, only if there was a death in the house. And just because there's a death in the house doesn't mean it's going to be haunted, because most of the time those spirits have passed on. Most of the time. Not all the time. But just because there was a death in the home does not mean it's going to be haunted or paranormal activity is going to happen. So that's where things need to change. We've talked before on the show about, should the government be involved in the paranormal? Should there be regulation on paranormal teams, especially the ones that charge money?
The ones who charge money shouldn't even be in the field.
No, I agree.
I was just going to say, isn't that kind of a conflict, though, when they charge money?
A lot of them do, though. Yeah, to me, it's unethical because you're making money off somebody's crisis.
Okay, but not even that part of it, but just the simple fact, wouldn't like any of their research, the data that they come up with or anything, how could it be actually taken seriously if they're actually getting paid to do it? Because in a lot of different, areas, people that are, charge a lot of money and stuff, they kind of slant, research to go their way. So if you're charging for it and stuff, are they trusted actually?
Well, here's the problem with charging. So if I pay for a service, I expect the service to be done. If you go in because someone's complaining about footsteps, scratches on the wall, voices in their head, things of that nature, are you guaranteed to take care of that?
That's what I was going to say.
You know, and even if, that's why with FMP we have an open door policy. If we've cleared your home, if we've taken care of the issue, doesn't mean your case is necessarily closed. That particular case is closed, yeah, but you can come back at any point in time if something else happens, and it does happen. We had a case today we had to go back in.
And I mean, honestly, if I'm freaking paying somebody to clear my house, they better freaking have somebody stationed outside my house 24/7 in case I need them.
Right? And, you know, that's why we don't charge, because paranormal is just that. It's not normal. So how are you going to verify, how are you going to confirm that the spirit's gone, the malevolent entity's gone, and it's not going to come back? That's not a complete service to me.
Your group, though, Eric, they do aftercare, and that's one thing I don't think a lot of people do is they check with their clients over, make sure everything's still okay, and they check in with them periodically, don't they?
I can count the number of teams that do it on one hand, and that's
but I was talking about yours that does.
Oh yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Yes, we do. We do extended care. We do education to the client. We teach them how to protect themselves. We teach them how to clear their home, or keep their home clear. And then if that doesn't work, we go back in and make sure it's still clear. You know, the only time I put my foot down is the clients that we teach and don't pay attention. For example, the ones that played with a Ouija board. Ouija boards aren't evil. Ouija boards don't conjure demons. It's merely a tool of communication. But if it's not used right, it can be dangerous. So, if we have a client, they play with a Ouija board, something happened, we go in, we clear it, we tell them don't play with the Ouija board again, and they play with the Ouija board again and something happens again. We will clear it one more time, but we're not going back in after that. So, that's where we draw the line, because if you're going to do something stupid to cause issues again after we've already warned you, we're not going to help you again. That is where I put the foot down, because we don't have time to continually go back to the same house over and over and over again because someone didn't want to listen.
And yeah, to answer your question, like I did 2 cases today with extended care, and I'll go back in 2 days and check, then I'll go back in a week and check, and then I'll go back in 2 weeks and check. And if they have any issues or anything like that. So we check, and that's standard for all EC on this team. All of us do the same type of checking.
Right. And, not every team is perfect. We do have our glitches. We identify our glitches and we fix them. So,
yes, but we have more structure. You take a look at how this team operates, and look at the training of the astral that's provided. Now look at the training that EC's been added, and we all are trained. We all are have information available to us pretty quick if we have any kind of issues when we're dealing with a client. We have a structure, and I think that is what Seth was asking earlier in the program. That's one of the problems with a lot of the paranormal teams, I think, is the structure. And you get people in that just want fame. We don't want fame. Good God, I don't want to be put on TV. I mean, that would be horrible. Well, wait a minute. There is a certain investigator on TV that I would like to have a little talk with about protection, but we won't mention his name.
where'd that talk come from?
Yeah. But they do. They want the fame, and they don't have the structure.
Well, they don't
And
have
a lot of the
They don't have the structure, and even Dave on Spaced Out Radio, the teams that he has had on, you always ask, do you believe in protection? Well, no. Why do I need protection? Protection is a key to any team. It should be. But how many teams actually teach protection? How many teams actually use protection? Not many.
And a lot of people, like you were just talking about buying the haunted items, and a lot of people have the mind frame nowadays. Oh yeah, but it's not going to happen to me. It won't happen to me. I'm not going to get affected. Well, if these people knew the illnesses and the harm that these entities can cause a person, they may think twice. But until they know that, it's going to continue the way it is.
That's experience it.
Yeah. They have to experience it.
Yeah, that's the bad part. And, it won't happen to me. And, well, look at paranormal TV. It's all fake. So it can't happen. The paranormal isn't real. So, of course, I'm going to buy that haunted couch because it's not real.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's how these things know they're getting into your home.
Well, yeah.
Is the haunted couch leather? If so, I'll gladly buy it and pass over the spirit.
Just saying, there's a whole bunch of teen parents that said the same thing. It won't happen to me. Guess what?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't use protection, someone ends up screwed. Moral of the story.
It is.
Sometimes in more ways than one.
Well, I mean, look at the let's be obvious here. Look at the Ouija board. How many people are like, oh, I can just play with this, and this is a toy, and they're not realizing that sometimes what they do, they can cause a lot of negative yuck that comes in. I mean, they think they're just playing, and it's not a toy.
No.
And they don't realize.
But also, it kills the reputation of a very useful tool if you know how to use it. So many people treat it as a parlor trick, and then these bad things happen, and then, no, better stay away from those. And then if you're at a serious investigation and you break one out and you're helping a client who's already traumatized by something, they see that, and all of a sudden they put on the brakes. You may get a reaction. Has that ever happened? Where they get the reaction, you say, no, it's just a tool, okay, I have my EVP, this, that, K2 and all that. The Ouija board is an extension of yourself, and it's a tool. But the reputation of it is pushed under the bus because of the people who, treat it like an Nintendo.
They misuse it. Yeah, they misuse it. Yeah.
I think you should be 18 plus to be able to buy one.
Nah, they'll get them. They'll always get them.
I mean, honestly, what irritates me is the parents that sit there and they'll play with it after their kids go to sleep and nothing happens to them, but then find out next day your kid's acting weird.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you sick?
I mean, it's not just the people physically playing with it that are in danger.
Yeah.
Oh.
All
you were
right.
talking earlier. Oh, go ahead.
We're getting down to about the last 10 minutes of the show tonight. The show went quick. Happy anniversary, S4. And you can expect a lot more in the next 10 years because S4 ain't going nowhere. If you have ideas you want to hear for topics, if you want to hear any kind of guest speaker, of course, you can always contact me directly, either through the FMP group or directly on Facebook, or, well, hell, just send me an email, medicineeagle@yahoo.com, MEDICYNE_eagle@yahoo.com. And Dave, where can we find Spaced Out Radio?
Oh, where can you not? We're on 5 terrestrial stations in the United States, Closest one to Washington would be in Reedsport, Oregon, on KDUN AM 1030. And you can find us at spacedoutradio.com, on Twitter at spacedoutradio. All of our archives are free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio.
Outstanding. And Seth, you wanted to bring something up.
Definitely. A lot of you guys have noticed that maybe I haven't been on S4 quite a bit. I've been fighting the good fight here at home, and I know it's completely unrelated to the paranormal, and I also don't condone the use of it during an investigation, so let's just get that clear. But legislation failed to legalize recreational cannabis for adult use in New York State by 5 votes this legislative session. I have been active with a group called Legalize It, !CNY, with a good friend Gary Colmy, and we are fighting. I have a petition on my non-paranormal Facebook page called the Great Heathen Army, and on that petition, if you live in New York State, you can sign that if you feel that it should be legalized. And the reason why is I am a glaucoma patient. I cannot afford medically what they have, and they do not allow for medical patients in New York State to have it in flowered form. So I am actively going blind and losing my vision due to bureaucratic red tape. And the proof is in the pudding with 2 patients named Robert Randall and L.V. Musica, 2 people who won the right to use cannabis at the federal level free from any involvement with the government. And I am fighting to have it recreational. We just celebrated Independence Day, but we're not entirely free because Big Pharma has a hold on people here in New York State. Meanwhile, people are being jailed and arrested for plant. But that does not involve, in what I support, it does not involve people who commit violent crimes because of it. If you've committed a violent crime because of it, you do not need your record expunged. This is only for nonviolent offenders and people who are using it in the privacy of their own homes, being thrown under the bus and being jailed and being stigmatized for the use of something that was provided in nature. And I am fighting for that. And if you agree with that cause, I want you to join my page, The Great Heathen Army, and I want you to join the group Legalize It CNY. Thank you very much for allowing me to share my message.
Outstanding. Thank you, Seth. And Cole, where can we find Statement of Sound DJ services?
Oh, you can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/SOSDJPro. You can send me any kind of message on there. And you can find me at 360-999-2830.
Outstanding. And folks, if you have any kind of paranormal issue or if you just want to join the community, go to Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook. Just look for the group. Don't send me a message on the page, please. I don't check the page very often. Go to the group. And yeah, there. We make sure you tap your microphone. Sounds great.
Also, don't forget to get your tickets for Paracon at www.fmparacon.com.
Exactly.
The Ghost Walk.
Oh, we have a Ghost Walk at Paracon this year.
Yes.
So, okay. RJ says he never Facebooks. We do have a website. It's www.forestmoonparanormal.spruce.com. So go check out the website. And if you want your S4 mug, like I'm drinking out of, go to www.s-4radio.com and get our FMP and S4 swag. And so, that was one of the things that we actually changed in 2019. We actually got a store, a website. So, S4 is always advancing. We're always improving. And eventually, we're going to have a mixer board. So we actually start sounding clearer and more professional like terrestrial radio. So, there you go. We're always looking for ways to improve. So, time's flown. And I want to thank our crew, Cole Wegleitner, our FMP technical analyst and owner of Statement of Sound DJ Services, Chris and Brent Dodge from the FMP team, the Extended Care team, the Astral team. Thomas McAllier, our boots on ground. Dave from Spaced Out Radio, and Seth from, well, used to be Dark 30. I don't know how to announce you anymore, Seth.
Dark 30 Media is still mine.
Okay, Dark 30, there you go, that's all I needed to know. Dark 30 Media. And next week, we're talking UFOs in 2019. And Keith should be back by then. I know he was in the chat room for a good half of the show. Would have pulled him in, but I wasn't sure if he was up to talking tonight. He had fun in the chat room anyway. He'll be back next week. I'll have to go to Canada and grab him up and wake him up, but he'll be back next week. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Keep your eyes for the skies. You got UFO reports, Bigfoot reports. Make sure you send them to FMP. And y'all have a safe week.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on S4, the official voice of Forest Moon Paranormal. You can contact S4 through our website at www.s-4radio.com or on Facebook. Make sure you give us a like on our page and join the Forest Moon Paranormal group. If you are interested in advertising, take a look at our packages and contact Cole or Eric at 1-360-999-2830. Again, thank you. And remember, keep your eyes to the sky.